It started with a joke. Who decorated the closet? Radio Shack. Greg snorted into the mic, eyes gleaming with that startup bro arrogance, like he'd just invented sarcasm and synergy in the same breath. The staff laughed. Well, most of them. The engineers fake laughed. The interns actually laughed, not knowing any better. Me? I just stared at the glowing rack of servers I'd nursed like a colicky child for 8 damn years, and I thought, this is the moment the idiot presses detonate on his own career. He was our new CFO. Greg Darnell had come in 3 weeks ago with a jawline sharp enough to slice deli meat and a resume laminated in buzzwords. Transformation, optimization, capital fluidity, real Silicon Valley thesaurus trademark energy. The board loved him because he used phrases like margin velocity and wore brown leather loafers without socks. The kind of guy who smelled like oat milk cologne and thought AI stood for aggressive innovation. Now here he was, standing at the all-hands, laser pointer aimed at my server rack like it was a middle school science fair project he planned to bully. This little guy here, he said, waving at my setup, has been running for 10 years? Legacy hardware, completely redundant. We're spending $2,400 a month to power Andrew's Nostalgia Museum. Time to pull the plug, literally. The laughter died down just enough for me to hear my own blood boiling. I didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice, just sipped burnt coffee and watched this clown roast the only thing in the building that hadn't crashed since Obama's second term. What Greg didn't know, and what I'd documented 6 different ways, was that rack wasn't nostalgia. It was necessity. It ran a homegrown transaction validator that their shiny, over-budget cloud couldn't replicate without imploding under token drift. But Greg had skimmed his onboarding packet like it was a BuzzFeed quiz. And if you're still reading 3 paragraphs deep, clearly you like watching corporate dumpster fires. So do me a favor, subscribe and tap like. Yeah, 97% of you ghost these stories without following, and honestly, it kills me faster than Greg killed our payment processor. Anyway, Greg wrapped up the meeting with his signature closer. Let's streamline the future, people. Translation, let's unplug stuff I don't understand and hope no one notices until I've moved on to my next job in fintech. Back at my desk, Slack lit up like Times Square on meth. Big changes coming, excited to optimize. Anyone know if Andrew's rack really is outdated? I didn't answer. Just logged into the validator node one last time, exported a full activity mirror to my private terminal, tagged one file with a single word, pending. I had built that rack myself, sourced the parts on nights and weekends, kept the scripts lean, protocols airtight. It was a Frankenstein's monster of brutal efficiency. No fluff, no cute-named APIs, just performance. It didn't care about morale, it processed data, fixed asynchronous bugs, patched token conflicts in real time, quietly, perfectly. Until now. I packed my plants into a tote, closed my laptop, and walked past Greg's office. He was laughing again, something about finally getting rid of the clutter. I smiled, nodded at him through him, because I knew what was coming. They hadn't unplugged a server, they'd unplugged their parachute, and they did it with a damn dolly. 2 guys from facilities rolled in around 8:47 a.m., one sipping an energy drink, the other chewing a granola bar like it owed him money. Neither had a clue what they were touching. Got orders from Greg, the taller one muttered. Unplug the nostalgia stack. The nostalgia stack, that's what he called it. Like it was a dusty pile of VHS tapes instead of the only thing standing between us and a full-blown transactional breakdown. The leads dimmed one by one like dying stars. The fan slowed. The hum went silent. And with it, so did 8 years of my breath. I said nothing, not even when they bumped the frame into the door on the way out, like amateurs moving a Craigslist couch. I just stared, letting the silence hang in my throat like motor oil. My fists were in my pockets to keep from shaking. Not out of fear, out of restraint, because if I opened my mouth, someone was getting verbally incinerated. And that wouldn't serve the plan. I'd already started the plan. The night before, while Greg was probably polishing his PowerPoint transitions and watching YouTube videos about executive presence, I'd been quietly crafting a secure data capsule on a thumb drive with a biometric lock. That drive held validator override keys, back-end recovery scripts, and a beautifully annotated ledger of every system change I'd ever implemented. The last line I typed was a single command: initiate failsafe protocol 9XO. It didn't execute anything yet. It just waited. I also drafted a brief message to legal. Nothing threatening, nothing aggressive, just documentation. The kind of email that gets archived and ignored until suddenly it isn't. At 9:22 a.m., I walked to my desk, grabbed my coffee mug, a folder of onboarding forms, and a single red envelope marked "If found." Please return to Andrew N. Inside was a dead USB stick from 2014 and a paperclip. Just enough to confuse someone if they got curious. I told Tanya from HR I'd be working remotely for a few days. No drama, no explanation. She blinked a few times, unsure if I was being laid off or promoted. I didn't clarify. I took the back stairwell down. Same one I'd used the night the site first went live, back when we were 6 people and a dream. The server rack used to be just 2 crates and a fan I'd bought at Home Depot, back when people still gave a damn. I carried that thing up and down stairwells every time we moved buildings. Now they wheeled it out like junk, but I wasn't panicking. Panic is a luxury for people without a plan. I had one. I'd had it for months, because when you've watched 3 CEOs come and go, sat through a dozen restructurings, budget freezes, ransomware scares, and Greg's smug nepotism in 6 different flavors, you learn. You don't scream. You don't argue. You wait. At home, I booted up the mirror node. My node. Quiet little clone of the system nobody knew about, humming in a temperature-controlled closet I'd built after the 2020 server room flood, taught me the value of redundancy. Logs flickered across the screen, payment confirmation cycles slowing, duplicate ID flags ticking up, minor anomalies stacking like termites in drywall. They hadn't noticed yet, but they would, and by the time they realized Greg had unplugged the validator, the real validator, they'd already be bleeding. Refunds, failed orders, broken promo codes, ghost carts haunting their CRM. Me? I'd be sipping tea, waiting for the knock. Not because I wanted it, but because they'd need it. Bad. It started like all tech meltdowns do. Quiet, irritating, conveniently someone else's fault. 2 days after the rack got wheeled out like a busted jukebox, the first help desk ticket hit. A customer reported getting double refunds on a single cancelled order. Then another, then 6 more, across different regions, all within a 2-hour window. Refund queue backed up like a clogged toilet. But no alarms yet, just mild concern and the usual vendor shrugs. Our outsourced IT team, a bunch of smug guys halfway across the country with synergy in their job titles, called it regional congestion. Said it was a DNS issue, maybe latency from a failover node syncing improperly. Their fix? Purge the session cache, restart the microservice, classic tech support bingo. Meanwhile, the order queue started throwing errors like a slot machine with a grudge. Transactions stuck in processing, payment tokens timing out, customers refreshing for hours, then giving up and buying somewhere else. But the cloud dashboard still said operational. Corporate speak for, don't look behind the curtain. In the morning stand-up, Greg popped into Zoom with a fresh haircut and that same teeth-whitened smile. So we've had a little turbulence, he said, but all systems are go, right? Then he laughed. Maybe someone should just reboot the cloud. I watched from my kitchen table, earbuds in, feeding my dog the crust from my toast. Greg's voice sounded like cheap whiskey mixed with a drum circle. Every syllable made me want to set fire to a fiber cable. He didn't know. Not yet. See, what Greg never understood, what none of them did, was that the rack hadn't just run the validator. It corrected it. It patched asynchronous token drift in real time. Know how you can spin a coin and it looks like it's standing still? That's what my rack did to the transaction stream. Balanced chaos into precision. Without it, token IDs aged too fast. Timeouts overlapped. Refunds doubled because the backend couldn't confirm state without locking up. It wasn't a bug. It was entropy, a slow math-based disintegration, and they just let it loose. I leaned back in my chair and opened my private terminal. My mirror system humming in digital quarantine was quietly watching everything. Every lag spike, Every abandoned cart, every misfire flagged with an ID like #validate protocol. Logs don't lie. Unlike Greg, a drip became a trickle became a leak. By midday, sales metrics showed a 6% variance between confirmed transactions and revenue capture. Still within tolerance, Greg said, because he didn't understand that variance is compound. He ended the meeting early to focus on deliverables. Translation: call a buddy who once built a Shopify plugin and beg for advice. I didn't gloat, not yet. There's no joy in watching a plane crash you warned them about, just grim inevitability. I didn't want chaos, but I knew it was coming. I could see it blooming in the logs like rot. Silent. Beautiful, unstoppable. Entropy doesn't scream, it whispers. By Friday morning, the dashboard started lying. Not just wrong contradicting each other in real time. Sales saw 148M. Accounting saw 312N. Marketing swore we'd hit 153M and launched a celebratory emoji parade in Slack. Then someone pulled refund totals, 197 meds. No one could reconcile what the hell we actually earned. It was like the company was haunted by ghost revenue. Linda, one of the accountants, overworked, under-caffeinated, lost it in chat. Are we making money or hemorrhaging it? Because QuickBooks says both. Complaints started flooding in, order still stuck in processing. I was charged twice and got nothing. I cancelled yesterday and haven't gotten my money back. One guy threatened to report us to the Better Business Bureau and to his cousin at Channel 8. I bookmarked that one. He seemed like a man of action. Then came the dev ticket that lit the fuse. A junior developer named Ethan, fresh out of college, still believed management read documentation. He filed a detailed report flagged urgent. I read it from my mirror system while sipping lukewarm coffee. Token loop mismatch. His exact words: it looks like the backup validator isn't compensating for synchronous token delay. Timestamps are diverging too fast. We're stacking orders before closing prior ones. Basically creating digital echo transactions that don't finalize properly. It was beautiful, poetic, accurate. It was also his last act as an employee. Greg, in his infinite jaw-clenching panic, fired him on the spot. Said he was spreading unnecessary drama and disrupting morale with theoretical panic. No severance, no HR present. Just a Slack message. Thanks for your service, Ethan. I watched it unfold. Ethan's access revoked. His email signature blanked, just like that. Another loose thread snipped before it could unravel the quilt Greg was using to tuck in his ego. That's when I sent the email. No name, no threat. Just a soft surgical note to legal, routed through a secure third-party relay. Protocol Echo 9. Reference lines 45 version 78. Invalidator patch notes V2, 7B. Suggested reading timeline, immediate. Protocol Echo 9 wasn't public knowledge. It was buried in the infrastructure manual 3 years ago, detailing this exact scenario. A fail-safe for token drift when no real-time correction exists. Translation: what happens when you unplug my damn server? I didn't want to burn the place down, but legal's job is to smell smoke before anyone else does. By close of business, half of engineering was in triage. Sales was asking for manual overrides. And Greg? Greg was off-site, probably stress-googling how to diagnose cloud failures while sipping overpriced whiskey. He wouldn't find the answer, because the answer was me, and I hadn't touched a damn thing. The emergency meeting invite landed at 7:58 a.m. on a Saturday. Subject line sparkled with Greg's signature optimism, Q2 system sync touchpoint, which was Greg speak for, "Oh God, the plane is on fire," and I just taped over the altimeter with a smiley face sticker. 12 people joined the Zoom. Only 2 turned cameras on. The rest looked like they'd either been crying or calculating how long they could coast on severance. Greg, of course, looked like he'd just dabbed concealer under his eyes and practiced lines in front of a ring light. "Okay, team," he began, flashing that used car grin. "I know there's been some noise around the transaction pipeline, but I want to assure everyone this is minor turbulence, routine even." He said routine like we were just cleaning out fridge odors, not hemorrhaging revenue like a gut-shot racehorse. I've already reached out to our cloud partners. PR is drafting messaging. We'll lead with transparency and ownership. Translation, we're going to lie as vaguely as possible and hope no one checks the math. Then came the kicker. As for the validator logs, engineering's on it. We've got backups of backups. Just a visibility hiccup. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, one of the few back-end engineers left. You locked it, didn't you? I didn't reply, not because I didn't want to, but because there was nothing to say. She knew. They all knew. Greg was bluffing like a man playing poker with Uno cards. See those validator logs, the ones showing where payment flow was rupturing, where refunds were triggering without matching charges. They were tied by design to a secure encrypted certificate. And that certificate was tied to my fingerprint and a passphrase so oddly specific, no AI could crack it in a century. Greg couldn't even spell asynchronous without help. The engineers had tried everything, rotating credentials, loaning access, even asking an intern to brute force it like they were in a bad Netflix hacker drama. Nothing worked, because there was no workaround. I'd built it that way, after Jenkins wiped a month of sales logs in 2019 and Greg's predecessor tried pinning it on legacy code. I'd sworn never again. So I documented, encrypted, and kept the real keys off-site synced, only to one isolated terminal. Back in the meeting, one of the board members finally spoke. So you're telling us we can't see the logs that show where the money is going? Greg hesitated, forced that smile, like a gambler bluffing a royal flush with a pair of fours. We're just hitting a brief credentials mismatch, standard protocol drift. I've got folks resolving it. I could see the panic bleeding through his pupils. It wasn't just the system breaking, it was his image. His LinkedIn pipeline of promotions was fracturing, shard by shard. PR chimed in. We're suggesting language like proactive maintenance and infrastructure modernization. Thoughts? Someone unmuted just long enough to cough the word bullshit, then dropped from the call. I sipped my tea, logs scrolling peacefully on my home rig. Feet up, dog snoring on the rug, air conditioner humming like nothing was wrong. I wasn't panicked. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just watching rot get sunlight, watching the fire they'd lit eat through Greg's sandcastle of ego and half-truths. I hadn't leaked a thing, I hadn't broken a law, I just let the truth do what it always does. Eventually it screams loud enough to drown every lie in the room. It happened at 11:42 a.m. on Saturday, right in the middle of the much-hyped weekend Blitz sale. Everything yoga mats, smartwatches marked down 40, ads blasted across 4 states, 2 influencer podcasts, even a giant bus wrap in downtown Phoenix. And then nothing. No processing, no thank you for your order. No revenue counter ticking up like a Vegas slot machine, just digital dead air. Order confirmations vanished mid-transaction. Customers clicked buy now and got trapped in limbo. One woman posted a screenshot of her cart spinning on a loading wheel for 23 minutes, captioned, "Is this part of the sale or a psychological experiment?" Another influencer, a fitness guy named Tyvan, with 2 million followers and abs that could cut glass, posted a story just staring at the screen, whispering, "They scammed us." 500,000 views in 3 hours. Caption, "Blitzfail not sponsored. Any more refunds began triggering automatically. Not because anyone approved them, but because the system couldn't confirm charge states. So it defaulted. Protect the customer. 600,000 in misfired refunds in the first 2 hours. And the cherry on top? At 12:03 p.m. sharp, the internal revenue dashboards froze. Just stopped ticking like a watch tossed in the ocean. Slack threads turned into horror movie transcripts. Sarah, Eng, can someone verify if the transaction bridge is down? Ron, finance, bridge, there's no bridge. DevOps, Sam, logs are intact, just empty. As in, like, never existed empty. Greg, just a temporary sync issue. No need to panic. Ron, we're refunding phantom orders and not processing new ones. I'd like to panic now. Meanwhile, Greg kept tap dancing through Teams calls with lines like, "Momentary turbulence. The cloud just needs to hydrate. Hydrate. I swear on my life he said that." Legal started poking again, asking for Protocol Echo 9 documentation. One nervous attorney even CC'd me by mistake. I didn't reply. No need. Because at 1:27 p.m., I got a text from Miguel, one of the few decent engineers left. Did you know this was coming? I stared at it for a long second, then typed 3 words. They unplugged it. That was it. No gloating, no villain monologue, just the truth, because that's what it always was. Not sabotage, not revenge, just physics, just cause and effect. You don't pull the spine out of an organism and then act shocked when it can't stand. And me? I was baking banana bread, watching collapse play out on my kitchen monitor like Sunday football. Every log, every dropped session, every misfired refund pinged my mirror system like confetti. It was beautiful, not because I wanted them to fail, but because it proved what I'd always known. You don't mock what you don't understand, and you sure as hell don't unplug it. By Monday morning, the office smelled like burnt-out servers and desperation. No one said it out loud, but the vibe had shifted. Gone was the bro culture bounce Greg had brought in, frisbee in mouth, like a dog showing off. In its place, white-knuckled silence. Slack channels were ghost towns. Help desk queues read like war diaries. Refund backlogs metastasized. Worst of all, no one could even say how much money we'd actually lost. Then came the forensic audit, commissioned by the board, rushed by legal, conducted by a third-party firm that billed by the hour like surgeons for hire. They didn't ask questions. They just followed the data logs, timestamps, access trails, packet flows. 19 hours later, they dropped their verdict like a guillotine. The backups weren't backups. They were mirrors. And not even complete mirrors, partial cloud image nodes that required real-time validation to function. Which meant the moment Greg unplugged the original rack, the only source of master-side timestamp correction, every shiny new system was flying blind. Token drift crept in almost immediately. At first milliseconds, then seconds, then catastrophic mismatches. Orders authorized against expired tokens. Refunds issued for transactions that didn't exist. Duplicate carts, charge loops. By the time they realized the data wasn't just bad, it was radioactive. But the real kicker, the system had been compensating for years. Quietly, manually, line by line, by me. The forensic team unearthed it in the logs. Daily entries, timestamp corrections, fail-safe patches, all pushed under the admin key labeled Aoris Avid. No cron jobs, no automation, just one man and his terminal. Patch, validate, confirm, repeat, day after day. I never bragged about it. Never put it on my KPIs. I didn't do it for credit. I did it because it had to be done. And Greg, he finally got it. That night, around 8 p.m., long past HR's definition of working hours, he was caught pacing barefoot in the empty office, white dress shirt stained with panic sweat and coffee. Jules, one of the IT guys, saw him through the glass wall. Greg stood there holding an old backup drive, like if he gripped it hard enough it might whisper him the answer. Then he said it quietly, to no one. Maybe to God. Maybe to the vending machine. I unplugged the validator. Jules didn't reply, just watched him crumble. Because that's what it was now, a slow collapse of a man finally realizing the thing he mocked was the only thing that had kept him standing. Later that week, legal unearthed my documentation, 3 years of emails, internal memos, decks titled things like validator architecture limitations under token load and the case for a hybrid redundancy layer. Each one stamped, dated and followed by the same response, deprioritized for Q4. But one email stood out, to Greg Darnell. Subject, critical validator dependency. Sent March 3rd, 11:14 a.m. Greg flagging again, cloud mirrors aren't independently validated. If the primary node is disabled, token sync will spiral. Please confirm continuity strategy before any decommissioning. Nathan's status, read. Never replied. No one could save him now, and I didn't have to lift a finger. The call didn't come from the CEO. It came from Rachel, the crisis PR fixer. Cool voice, Manhattan zip code. The kind of woman who could stop a media leak with one hand and ruin a man's NDA with the other. Her voicemail was so polite it practically curtsied. Would you be open to a confidential conversation regarding a strategic advisory opportunity? Translation, the house is on fire. And you're the only one who remembers where the extinguisher is. I didn't respond right away. I finished my coffee, walked the dog, watched the sunrise like it owed me interest, let them marinate. Then I replied with an email. No greeting, no fluff. Just terms, 3-month retainer, paid in full up front. Full admin access. No oversight. I pick my own hours, my own tools, and who I do or don't talk to. Greg Darnell removed publicly by Monday. No leave of absence, no transitioning roles. Badge deactivated, Slack grayed out, before I plug a single cable back in. 4 hours later, the contract hit my inbox. Signed, sealed, no negotiation. Just one line added, "Welcome back, Nathan. Thank you." Pathetic. The next morning, I rolled into the office at 8:01 a.m. Not because I had to, just because I knew the early crowd would see it. Same parking spot, same boots, same ID badge. Only now the badge buzzed with a different weight. I scanned in, stepped through the lobby and felt it. The hush. That loaded silence that follows a storm, the kind that tastes like stale coffee and dread. Nobody said a word. A couple engineers nodded awkwardly. Some avoided eye contact altogether. HR peeked through their glass terrarium like I was a saber-toothed tiger loose in the cubicles. Even Tanya, the receptionist who'd complimented my ties for 3 years straight, just blinked and looked away. I didn't blame them. I walked past Greg's old office, empty. Blinds drawn, chair spun backwards, a half-drunk protein shake still sweating on the desk. His nameplate was gone. Just a faint rectangle on the wall, like a tombstone someone tried to scrub clean. Someone had left a single sticky note on his monitor. 3 words, black Sharpie, "Plug it back." I kept walking, straight to the server room, my server room, the one they'd gutted and converted into storage after wheeling out the rack. I unlocked the cage, smelled the faint tang of metal and memory. Everything was there, just unplugged. A cathedral with no choir. I knelt, slid the power connector into place, and felt it hum under my palm. No speeches, no applause, just fans spinning up, lights blinking steady, the validator nodes syncing with my mirror system like 2 old friends shaking hands after a long silence. Logs aligned, drift corrected, refund queues halted, sales queues rebalanced. Didn't take hours. Took minutes, like the system had been waiting for me. I stood, dusted off my palms, and walked out. By 8:19 a.m., the validator was online. No ceremony, just a blink of LEDs. The hum that used to lull me through crisis nights returning like muscle memory. Within 90 seconds, the mirror nodes recognized authority. Within 5 minutes, token drift corrected across all layers. By 10 minutes, the sales engine was breathing again. Refund queues thinned. Confirmation loops lit up with surgical precision. It didn't just work, it obeyed. Because the system didn't need fixing, it needed reminding. And now it remembered who built it. Upstairs, the board must have seen the dashboard spike back to life. Someone leaked a screenshot to a private Slack channel labeled Q3 Miracle. One entry stood out. Subject, Nate Parker saves Q3 from Ron, Finance. She didn't even reboot it. Just plugged it back in. Holy that email spread like wildfire. Someone slapped Greg's face onto a Roomba meme with the caption, "Streamlined this." By noon, Greg's access was revoked. Calendar wiped. A brief statement went company-wide. Effective immediately, Greg Darnell has been relieved of his duties as CFO. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. No Zoom farewell, no fruit basket, just a vacuum where ego used to be. Some say he tried to blame vendor negligence before legal dropped the patch logs on him, his digital signature approving the unplug order. Others say he broke down in the parking lot, screaming into his AirPods about cancel culture for CFOs. Doesn't matter, he unplugged it. That's all anyone remembers. And me? I stayed late. Not for the company, not for glory. Just to sit with it one last time. Server room B, beige paint, rows of lights blinking their Morse code lullaby. I pulled a folding chair from the hallway, set my thermos on the floor, and just sat there. Nobody disturbed me. Nobody dared. I sipped lukewarm coffee, didn't care. The validator thrummed beside me. Perfect, brutal, blameless. And I said nothing. Because there was nothing left to say. He thought it was decoration. I knew it was detonation.